The phone line's 560 WQAM. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Joy from South Carolina.
Go for it, man. What's going on, Jordan?
Dan, I want to thank you for your show. We love your show. Thank you for letting us Dolphin fans get our frustration out there.
It's important.
Um, Greer cannot come back to this team. I read an article where they said that he might retire and be some sort of advisor. He cannot have anything to do with this team at all. There is no GM out there good who is going to want to get this job knowing that Greer will be in some type of, have a little bit of input in what the Dolphins do. He needs to be completely gone. Ross needs to bring him in the office tomorrow and tell him, look, you got to go. You haven't done what you need to do. We need to bring in some fresh eyes here. This team needs a complete overhaul. We need receivers. We need the trenches. They need to trade Tyreek. Tyreek got to go. He wasn't doing nothing today. He hasn't done nothing for the past couple of games. He needs to go. He looks like he checked out from the Dolphins team.
I didn't see him play very much at the end of the game.
We need receivers that are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", that can go and catch the ball. That's what we need. The only one that did anything today was Achan. He's the only one that did anything today. And the backup quarterback, Huntley, he wasn't that bad. It's just the offensive line is bad. It sucks. So they need a complete overhaul. Please do not give Greer our draft picks that we have 10 draft picks this year. Do not give him not even one because he will mess this up.
Jordy, I want to ask you though, Jordy, if there's a whole overhaul of the team, are you willing to sit through another rebuild? Are you willing to sit and watch some really bad Dolphins teams try to figure it out? Or do you want to kind of try to keep things going, maybe tweak some things and try to get back into the playoffs and finally win a playoff game?
I want to tweak, but I want Greer gone. He doesn't have any. I don't want him to have any input, and I'm more sure any Dolphin fan out there wants him to have any input. He hasn't done nothing for the past 8, 9 years that he's been here.
Yeah.
What makes you think that he's going to do something now?
That's true.
All he does is mess it up.
I really do think that there's reason to believe that Chris Greer could be fired. There's been some reports, him moving up in the organization, them trying to be nice, putting him in some position. No general manager wants the other former general manager looking over his or her shoulder. I don't think that's going to happen very much. I think, like I told you, Robert Griever, I think Stephen Ross should be embarrassed after what he said at the beginning of the season in the preseason, saying this is a Super Bowl caliber team, and then seeing what happened. Now it seems like even though he likes the yes man, even though he likes the loyalty, even though he likes that Chris Greer is a good, nice guy, I think at one point it's going to come to like, I can't have this.
Well, that's the problem with Stephen Ross. I like the fact that he will do whatever it takes, to get this roster where it needs to go, because he will spend whatever amount of money. Yeah. That's never an issue with him. Oh, you need me to write a check? No problem. Done. The problem is that he's surrounded himself with the wrong people.
Right.
And he has a bunch of people around him that are giving him the happy horse manure, as some people would call it, giving him what he wants to hear. And unfortunately, that's not what he needs. He needs to have some people out there that know what they're doing. And unfortunately, he hasn't had that ever since he's been here, unfortunately. And that's where the problem comes in is that when you don't have the right people in the right positions, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It's not going to fix the situation. And that's where, unfortunately, we're in that position right now where you're going to have to somehow revitalize this organization, top to bottom, bottom to top. It needs a good cleaning, because unfortunately what's there right now is not getting you where you need to go. They make this whole thing, as the last caller said, is and you mentioned the same thing about, going through a rebuild. There's plenty of teams out there that did a rebuild in 1 year.
Yeah.
Look at the Washington Commanders, 1 year playoffs. They went from the number 2 pick in the draft to being a playoff team in 1 year.
Yeah, and you never know. Like, if they do try to rebuild and fire the general manager and do some other things, do you trust that Stephen Ross can get the right people around him? My best bet would be that he needs to hire an independent consulting firm to come in there and try to get the right people into the organization and get this organization where it needs to get. Don't know what's going to happen, so we're going to be waiting on all that. But I'm waiting to hear from you. 305-567-0560, 560 WQAM. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Jackson, calling from South Carolina.
Good to hear from you, Jackson. What's happening?
So, I think we should go in tomorrow. Like, Steve, if I was Stephen Ross, the owner, I would go up to Chris Greer. I would say to him, hey, man, this is not how we're supposed to do it if you're going to rebuild this team. Because, like, we have to get new players. We have to get new pass rushers since Phillip and Chubb are out. And we get Jordan Poyer. We get Shaq Barrett, and he retires. So, like, we give away Van Ginkel, one of our best pass rushers. And I'm shocked. And Jordan Poyer can't do anything. He's not a good safety. We could have got Justin Simmons. He was a free agent, and the Falcons got him. And I'm just, like, so disappointed of this team. And Anthony Walker did good this season. Jordan Brooks did good this season. And I would just go up to Chris Greer, and I would say, hey, man, we're going to have to part ways with you if you're not going to make this team better and not going to get the people that we want.
I understand.
And Tua is a fragile QB, and Brian Flores was right. Like, Tua can't be the guy that we need because he's not accurate enough. I mean, he is accurate, my fault, and he's a weak quarterback, can't throw that far, and he gets hurt a lot, and he makes a dumb decision of diving in front of the Texans defenders, of hurting his hip, and, like, he did that the Buffalo game week 2. Like, he got a concussion because of that. And I'm just shocked because it's hard to be a Dolphins fan. And Broncos, they got their playoff spot. They earned that. And it's just crazy.
I understand. And you just have to feel as though if Tua Tagovailoa had been healthy few more games, kind of like Jimmy Butler last year, healthy a few more games, you would be in a different playoff position. The frustrating thing is Tua Tagovailoa missing those games in the middle of the season and then missing the final 2 games of the season. 6.5 games. 6.5 games. And he plays a very cavalier style of football. His former college coach, Nick Saban, even said he tries to do too much sometimes. He's hazardous to his health. And you start now wondering, look at the history. He has a history of a lot of injuries. Last year, he played healthy. It was his best year. Didn't get hurt. We kind of protected him. Is it one of those things that we're going to have to protect Tua more and more and more and more from himself and everything else? It is frustrating with Tua right now. And Chris Greer, the lineup that he's put together, it does not win in the cold. The offensive line is really, really bad. The bright spots this year for the Dolphins have pretty much been on the defensive side. Jonnu Smith, let's go on the offensive side. Jonnu Smith has been a bright spot.
When they finally figured out how to use them.
Okay, who else has been a bright spot on the offense? That's been
Achane.
a up. Devon Achane, although he kind of got worn down at the end of the year, but obviously. Right. And then on the defense, Jordan Brooks was really good. You had a good year from Sealer, as always. Calais Campbell.
Yep.
Chop Robinson came through it towards the end, but not a ton of. It's tough. We're going to get to it later, Greeper. We're going to get to our JM Lexus player of the game. Too often, we've had slim pickings for a player of the game. Very rarely have we come on and been like, we have an abundance of people that we want to give the player of the game to. It's always like, all right, you take one guy, I take the other obvious guy, and that's about it. That's all we got.
I mean, we're kind of at the point now, we're going with the best of the worst here to kind of choose who's the player of the game. Just one short thing here. Just wanted to let you know and our listeners know, Joe Shad was reporting on Twitter. Tyreek Hill just told a few local reporters he has to do what's best for his career, whether it's in Miami or elsewhere.
Ooh, now there seems to be possibly.
Who do you think he is, Jimmy Butler?
Maybe there's some dissension. Tyreek Hill, kind of the football version of Jimmy Butler, it seems like. But it is interesting. The Heat, an organization that is well respected and does very prudent, wise things. And the Dolphins, an organization that's not as well respected and sometimes does some silly things. They took a totally different approach in the offseason. Jimmy Butler wants the extension. Shut up and play more. Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Ramsey, Mike McDaniel. They want extensions. Give it to them.
In other words, Chris Greer was Oprah over there going, you get a contract, you get a contract, you get a contract. And unfortunately, none of them deserved it.
Oh, man. Earn your contract is probably what Chris Greer and those guys should have said, especially hindsight being 2020. Dolphins not making the playoffs. Doesn't matter if they won or lost today because the Broncos win 38-0 over the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad, but still losing to the Jets. 32-20. Back to the phone lines, 305-567-0560. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, it's Jose from Fort Myers.
Go ahead, Jose.
Let me tell you, I've been a fan of the Dolphins since 1995. It's been tough, and I always say that it all starts at the top. So, McDaniels may be an offensive mastermind, but he probably needs to be a coordinator, not a head coach. He doesn't have the fortitude. He doesn't have the attitude, the toughness that it takes to be a leader in that spot. I know a lot of people like him, and he's got a lot of, a lot of experience, and he comes from a great background. But I don't think that he's got the mental fortitude. He's mumbling and fumbling at every press conference, and he can't even get a word out. I'm not being overly critical of him, but it all starts at the top. Leadership. It begins with leadership. And, Greer's got to go, and so does McDaniel, because that's going to make all the other players. I mean, I just look back at the Green Bay game. McDaniels looked like he wanted to die out there. And his team, you know what? Team takes the attitude from the leader.
That's true.
That's where it comes from.
Hey, no, look, we talked about this. This team has Mike McDaniel's fingerprints all over it. You don't think that he has a decision to make about this? He wants the speed guys. He wants the smaller guys. He wants the accuracy of Tua. Don't think that Mike McDaniel's just been handed these groceries by Chris Greer. Mike McDaniel has had a large say in the lineup in this roster. So you're right about that.
Thank you. And I think a lot of people are not talking about that, but I think we got to put a lot of responsibility on the team's performance, on him. All these gimmicks, these plays that he's running constantly, and he won't stop using them, even though they don't work. I hope that, we make a change there because it's too complicated.
I understand what you're saying, Jose. We do run a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage, it seems. Maybe it's because of Tyler Huntley and the backup, Skylar Thompson. But Tua was throwing a lot of back dinks and dunks and behind the line of scrimmage and not going deep downfield. Just seemed like last year there was a lot more free flow to the offense. And here's another thing, Robert Griever, that you look at. It seems anytime the Dolphins go up against a team that's a playoff team, are as good as them or better than them, they get whooped. Seems as though also every time Mike McDaniel goes up against a coach who you seem, maybe is a little bit better than him, he gets worked.
That's the most amazing thing is that this team is just outmatched when they're outmatched. And unfortunately, they also, as you saw earlier in the year, don't win the games that they should be winning as well. When you're going against teams like the Titans,
Jets,
both times, but we won't go into that one as much. But I mean, that's the problem that you look at this team down the stretch, they lose playoffs, they lose, playing against teams that are above 500, they lose other than the Rams.
And the Rams at that time weren't at 500 or they were above 500.
Right. And the thing is that you're looking at this roster and you're seeing a lot of mistakes made with the completion of this roster, going all the way back to their backup quarterback choice going into the season. And to be honest, that was probably the linchpin on this whole season. If you think about it, is that if they went out actually into the season with a competent backup, they would probably be in the playoffs right now.
You win one or two more games this year. That's how razor thin it is to get into the playoffs. You win, let's see, two more games at your Denver. Yeah. So you could possibly be in the playoffs. It's amazing. 305-567-0560, 560 WQAM. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Ben from Miami.
Hey, Ben, what's up?
What's up? I've been listening to people talking about that Tua's not the problem. Tua's the problem. Greer's the problem. McDaniel's the problem. They should have gotten Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, injured the whole year, is taking the Chargers to the playoffs. And the reason why Washington is so good is because they got an offensive coordinator. If LaFleur from Green Bay didn't have Jordan Love for 3 or 4 games, and were the Packers in the playoffs,
Malik Willis
we
still
just
won.
make
Yeah.
excuses. We just make excuses for the Dolphins. But where we failed is when we didn't get Justin Herbert, and we should have listened to Flores. Look at Flores where he's at. He's going to take the Minnesota Vikings, maybe, to win the conference, win the division, and take them to the Super Bowl. Because that defense was not as good as it is this year. It's just mistake after mistake after mistake
Yeah,
we make excuses for the Dolphins. Tua is a great quarterback, but he needs a lot of weapons around him. He needs a lot of protection. Justin Herbert doesn't need that. And you need a good offensive coordinator. McDaniel is okay, but he's not the top. But look at LaFleur. Look at the Green Bay Packers. They didn't have Love the whole year, and they made the playoffs.
That's right. When we had our guys out, it was just absolutely terrible.